Yeah. I'm sorry, I forgot.
Yeah, to have Uber, right? I don't know the password.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I didn't say.
All right. Tell Grace to come sit over here. Then we'll come back this way.
That's why we can keep our eye on this.
We said, we're like, she said she's with her dad.
Oh, yeah. Can't let her drive.
She couldn't walk in here by herself. Yeah. At the very end, and we didn't realize this, after everything was done, you're supposed to kiss. Steve turned to his best man and hugged him. I turned to my matron of honor. We never. Wow. Maybe that was the problem. That was a sign.
Yes, you and the gal.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. Thank you.
sign-in sheet, so we'll be bringing that around, make sure you sign in the area for your department, so be sure to look. Okay? I'd like to introduce Susan Williker from Wilkie, I'm sorry, from the Ohio Ethics Commission. We appreciate you coming today.
Good morning, thank you. Hey, everybody. So I'm just kind of curious. My sister-in-law teaches at Rossford. Did they get off again today? Does anybody know? She was hoping not. I had dinner with her last night, and she said, I'm starting to get a little bored at home. And I was like, oh, you poor baby. Right? Yeah, that's great house. So, hey, it's nice to meet you all. For those who are finishing your workday, thank you for hanging in one more hour with it. Those who are just starting, good morning. I hope you have your caffeine and you're ready to start a good day. So I am Susan Williker with the Ohio Ethics Commission. And I just want to say, for those who've heard me before, people in the building, if you've heard me at sessions before, nice to see you all again. If there's anybody I'm meeting for the first time, a special warm welcome, please don't be scared. I promise you this will neither be punitive, nor will it be your typical criminal law presentation, right? How many of you have ever been to a training, whether it was a guest speaker, whether it was your college days, whether it was a professional development day? How many of you have ever had the guest speaker who does the typical criminal law presentation like this? Like, who's had this guest speaker before? Goes like this, right? Now, everybody on this next slide, we're going to review Ohio Revised Code 292142A1. It's a very important provision of statute. So why don't we read it out loud together, beginning with the word promulgate? Right? You guys ever had that speaker before? Yeah. I don't want to do that. Number one, nobody learns that way. And number two, I really don't want this to be a end of our relationship. I really want from now on, everybody in the city of Oregon to feel like they can come to the ethics commission with questions, concerns, and know that they can get a good line of information. Because the truth is, let's be honest, some trainings go really well. Some maybe not so much, right? Yeah, so we want nobody injured in the making of today's ethics law training class, okay? So before we jump into all of what's the law all about, let me spend just 1 second here on the real why of the Ohio ethics, and why this statute really is important. And you know what the truth is? It may not be for the reasons that you honestly believe. Now, in all fairness, I feel like sometimes when there have been huge stories or scandals or major big convictions, sometimes I feel like I should at least acknowledge them, so it doesn't seem like we're running away from them. So let me say this right up front. It does not matter to me what side of the political aisle that you sit on. Hey, as long as you vote, cool, right? Well, that's between you and your world. That's all cool. But I feel like when we have these huge stories, like this past year, when the Speaker of the House of Representatives in Ohio is convicted of accepting a $60 million bribe, it doesn't matter what your politics are. That's a news story, right? You have to acknowledge this. I said, okay, I grant you, as someone in the ethics field, as someone in the ethics criminal law world, I will say this. I do think if someone in public service, hired, elected, appointed, whatever, it doesn't matter, if they truly do egregiously betray the public's trust, if they're that rapacious, I think there ought to be some criminal accountability under our statute. Fair?
Yes.
But then the other part of my brain does do this. As a public speaker in the law, when those two stories happen, here's what also happens to my brain. I go like this. Man, because I'll tell you what, doing 200 speeches a year for the past 19 years, I've kind of gotten a full bird's eye view of people in public service. When those gigantic stories happen, most of us in public service, the normal, hardworking people with our noses to the grindstone, we see those stories, we see those headlines, and we go like this. Oh, is that what this is about? Well, that doesn't apply to me. That's not me. No, I'm not important enough that anybody's ever going to offer me tens of millions of dollars in bribes. I'm never going to embezzle public money to purchase popcorn machines and wildebeests. If any of you think I'm making that story up, Google that one later just for giggles and chuckles kind of thing, right? And so we end up mentally dismissing this law as having any relevance in our lives. And the truth is the ethics law matters to you every day of your life, even when you're not thinking about it. It's okay that you're not thinking about it. But this law protects you in ways you don't even think about as citizens and as fellow taxpayers. Let's say today, something really simple. Let's say today one of you goes out to grab a bite of lunch later today. You have the right as a citizen, as a taxpayer, to know the last time somebody from the Lucas County Health Department, they inspected that restaurant, you have the right to know that inspector wasn't also one of the owners of that restaurant. You see, this law protects if you're not even thinking about it. So this was a story, I think this was out of Indiana, this was not an Ohio story, thank God, right? There was an investigation against a state employee. Her job was to inspect daycare facilities, normal part of her everyday life. Cool, glad she does that, right? Here's the issue. She and her husband have a side business in their private lives. Anybody want to guess what it is? They own 3 commercial daycare facilities. Guess who was inspecting all of them? She was. Now, I'm curious, anybody in the room, are there any moms and dads out there that felt that example a little more viscerally, right in your gut, right? Is there anybody out there that kind of falls in the category of, if you mess with me, I might be able to forgive you eventually. If you mess with my children, I will hide your body in the trunk of my car and help the search party look for you. Is anybody in that world out there? Yeah, but the thought that, so hang on a minute, wait, somebody, $60 million bribe, that's hard for us to, I can't wrap my arms on that, that's not my reality either. Somebody inspecting your kid's daycare center who happens to be the owner, that one strikes you, right? That's what this law is like. It's about saying every day of your life, and moments you're thinking of, when government's involved, you have the right to know that that action, that decision, that expenditure was fair and objective. In all fairness, I do think the word, bias comes into play here. It's okay that you and I have some biases, right? If you tell me your children or grandchildren are the most wonderful people ever brought to work on planet Earth, that's totally cool. It's okay to some degree to have those, identify those self-biases, our families, our own lives. But this is where the law says, that's okay, it's okay. It just means I'm not the one who inspects my kid's daycare center, right? Or if I own it. That's what this law is there to protect. So that's the why. I do work for the Ohio Ethics Commission. We are, even though we are a state agency who regulates, catch this, we regulate 600,000 people in public service throughout this, every state government to cities and townships and villages and schools, fire and police, and public libraries, everything else. We are actually pretty small. There's only 19 of us that work for the Ohio Ethics Commission. So I know most of you, your eye might go to that third one first, the investigations. People kind of like to hear about the scandals and the dirt, and I get all that with you, I understand that. But the truth is, we kind of prefer that most people not spend too much time in the investigative role. We much prefer people hang out with us in the advisory and the education training. So I'm the manager of the education training, communications. I do all the public speaking and the media work, and I talk to the legislature, news releases, and fact sheets. And my job is to take the very legal advice, that kind of lawyer-to-lawyer written stuff that our advisory trainings issue, and then I turn the language that's easy to understand to approach, and that people really do know, here's what the law does say to me in public service. If you ever do need legal advice about the ethics law, by all means, I understand you guys have a law director here, by all means, pick his or her brain. I don't know who this person is, but I guarantee you I can speak in his or her behalf for one minute when I say this. Any good attorney would so much rather have you say, hey, can I just run this by you? Would this be okay? What should I do? Versus how do we do damage control afterwards? So by all means, take advantage, but I just want to let you know, you can also seek and receive free binding legal advice from the Ethics Commission when it comes to the ethics law. If you ever do have a question on anything that we talk about today, and later on 6 months from now you go, Jay, I wonder what they would say about this. Come to us, it's completely free, and we turn around that advice really quickly, because we'd rather advise and educate than ever have to investigate. I will say this though, that binding legal advice that we provide free, it protects you, you can't be charged with a crime, you cannot be sued in civil court of law, you cannot be removed from your public job or office following our advice. Here's the one major caveat though, this falls in that category of, can't believe you have to say it out loud, but here we are, you had those moments in your life, right? My husband and I in 2019, we were hiking Glacier National Park. We're trying to do all the national parks in our lifetime. We were hiking Glacier in 2019. We saw this sign put up by the Park Service. This is there. We can't believe we have to say this, but here we are. Big sign that said, please be advised that bear repellent, Montana's grizzly bear country. The sign said, please be advised that bear repellent does not work like bug repellent. Let's ponder what some tourists must have done with some grizzly bear strength country. So here's my, can't believe you have to say it, but here we are. That free binding legal advice, which we're thrilled to offer, it's only good and available assuming the person hasn't already committed the crime. We're all good, right? That makes sense to all of us. I did a webinar one day, and right after I finished the webinar, my cell phone rings, which happens. People, hey, can I ask you a question based on what you just said? Yeah. So my cell phone rings, it's a school board member. I won't tell you the district, that's okay, but it's a good sized district, you would recognize the name of the school district. The school board member, hey, I wanna tell you a story, can you tell me what I should do, blah, blah, blah. Starts talking, you know what I picked up right away? All of her verbs were in the past tense. You with me? We decided, we voted, we discussed, I said, hang on, you've already done all these things we're talking about, and she's just a little bit snippy, she went this. Yes, that's why I need advice. And I'm thinking, no, you need a lawyer, actually, right? You just call the end certificate, that's where you go to help people, just keep it in peace. It hasn't happened. So we talked about the why, the who, here's the what of the ethics law. Here's what I want to spend the remainder of our time on. What does the statute actually say? How does it apply in your day-to-day lives working for the city of Oregon? There are actually other parts of the statute, but in 1 hour training, I try to hit kind of the highlights. If there's anything else you need, even the stuff that we talk about, please know everything I say, you will find tenfold more on our website. Every single one of these bullet points, you go to the education page of our website, that's part of the website that I oversee. You can go to these 6 bullet points, you can click on any one of them and get a whole, let's say you click on gifts. You're gonna get an overview of the gifts, but you're also gonna get most commonly asked questions. You're gonna get relevant fact sheet, everything from donations to discounts to conferences to holiday gifts. You're gonna find all kinds of things, because again, our goal is to provide you with that information in an easy to understand way. So I'm gonna go over these primary parts of the ethics law. You are welcome to come chat with me afterwards. If you wanna ask a question, no, that's fine, email me later, we'd be thrilled to help. Okay, so let's hit one at a time, conflicts of interest. I always think this part of law kind of gets a bad rap, because it makes it sound like someone's already done something wrong. I was doing a speech one day, and a guy came up to me afterwards. His body language told me he was already kind of nervous, and he walked up to me, his eyes were kind of like doing this, and he said, good speech, but kind of freaking out. I said, well, what's going on? You know, this, he said, after hearing you speak today, I'm pretty sure I have a conflict. And so he beat me, I couldn't help myself, I said, really, what is it? Here's the thing, conflicts of interest in and of themselves are not illegal to have. The truth is, conflicts in public service are kind of normal. They kind of happen a lot, simply because people in public service are still people. We still have our own lives, our own financial interests, our own properties. Some of you, in addition to your job here, maybe you do consulting work, you have a part-time job, you have clients in that private business, you have relatives in the area, you work here or there, you serve on the board of that nonprofit. We all have these lives. None of us cease to exist at the end of your shift or at the end of your workday. So conflicts of interest will occur. It has never been illegal in Ohio for someone to have a conflict of interest. What's illegal is if I were to act on that conflict. If I didn't act, or I was a building inspector, and I have a sister who's expanding her company and needs to add an addition. Is that a conflict for me if there are permits or applications or needed inspections for my office? Yeah, sure, that's a conflict. Is it any reason for me to panic? No, as long as I'm not the one that then conducts the inspection or the permit review and so on and so forth. It's all about this issue. I have to stay back. I'm going to recuse myself from acting. Now, the other phrase I will note here is we do talk about a conflict occurs when I have somebody in my life, my family, myself, my business associate, my private life, if there is a definite and direct impact. That phrase is important because I don't want you to feel like something that's so uniform across the board that impacts everybody equally somehow presents me with a prohibited conflict. So for example, let's say that I serve on the city of Oregon's city council. We would never say to your city council, so hang on, am I to understand that you all are gonna vote on a budget tonight? Yes, that's true. And is it true that the budget tonight does include money to maintain and repair roads in the city? Yeah, that's true. And do I not understand it to be true, council person, that you drive on the roads in the city? Yeah. Oh, you all have a conflict, you have to recuse yourself. You see what I mean? That's ridiculous. Nobody would ever interpret the statute that broadly. That's significantly different than this true life story, right? A person who's, if you grew up, anybody knows the agricultural world. Anybody that knows agriculture, you know in the country, there is a difference, isn't there, between a driveway and a lane. Anybody grow up in that world there? The driveway goes to your house, the lane goes to the back porch. there was a farmer in a very rural part of the state who, had a lane, right? It was right at the edge of his property, like 2 rented out tire tracks, tractors, trucks, goes back his property, the other side, another property line began another farm. He is elected as a township trustee. Once he's elected township, anybody want to take a guess what his very first official action was as trustee? What was it? I'm gonna get paid, and I'm gonna take it a step further. I'm gonna have it declared a township road, so the township pays and then maintains it. He is truly the only person on planet Earth that ever needs to use that township road. That's the difference. When somebody is sort of singled out, they're somewhere uniquely impacted, right? That's when we say, I'm simply going to step back, I'm going to recuse myself, I'm not going to act on that. I'm gonna go into some of the examples here just because of time. So let me give you a few examples of other things we've seen kind of in the world in the last couple of years. I'll look at a few here. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna back up. I'm gonna skip the true or false here. I'm gonna give you these because, forgive me, these have been more timely and more relevant. The reason that I say this has been going on a lot, we've been sending out an advisory opinion way back from like 1989. Because this has been going on a lot, to be honest, in Central Ohio, this question. Is anybody familiar with the Intel plant under construction in Central Ohio to make the chips? Yeah. Impacting lots of governments, county governments, townships, villages. It'll impact everything from expanding school districts, et cetera. So this was an issue that originally we opined on, that we wrote an advisory opinion way back in 1989. We've been sending this one out a lot lately because it's a great example of someone who clearly has a conflict of interest, but has done absolutely nothing wrong, right? This was somebody who, he didn't invite the conflict, he didn't invent the conflict, but here he is in this situation of, oh, gee, so this property issue, this commercial development that we have to vote on as a public body, that company, unbeknownst to me, has already approached my brother and said, hey, if council votes on this, we want to buy your property. So this isn't something that was his fault that happened, but he did absolutely the right thing. He acknowledged it. He came to us and said, hey, you know, if this goes through, my brother stands to make a whole bunch of money selling these 52 acres to this development company. Should I recuse myself from the discussion? Because his brother was more uniquely singled out. And he said, well done you. Thank you for identifying the conflict. Thank you for getting advice. Yet we're going to write you up a letter here. Recuse. So the guy did the right thing. He didn't just abstain from the vote. He stayed out of discussions and deliberations and let that process happen without him. This one I will tell you, I said the word state employee, it can be any public employee. Does it surprise you, even if the city of Oregon didn't do work from home during the pandemic, does it surprise you, just as an Ohioan, and as an American, to know that during the pandemic, we received more allegations of this kind of stuff going on? Does this surprise anybody? And I don't always believe it was nefarious, right? Not every time somebody makes a mistake on the ethics. Well, there are people that I said are kind of egregious in their, very overt in their behaviors. But I also think sometimes it's simply a matter of people they're not getting out of bed in the morning, kind of doing I like to call it the villain hand sweats. Anybody know the villain hand sweat? Whoa, how could I have spoken position for personal gain today? I don't think it always happens that way. I think what might have happened during the pandemic, for people who were sent to work from home, if that was a brand new thing for them, people seem to start off very vigilant of, this is kind of freaky, this is new, I'm gonna be really careful. And then as time went on, people just got more relaxed. So we began to get more, allegations of abuses of public time, things like, hey, we're noticing on, that Susan Wilkie, we're seeing on her state laptop a lot of traffic that seems to have more to do with her underwater basket weaving business than with the ethics law. So that was one that we I think it's kind of steadied itself out as time goes on. This was an issue. Okay, now the last one I'm going to put up here real quick. All right, first I want to do a preemptive apology. I normally, as a public speaker, have 4 slides with 1 million words on it. Okay, so you don't have to read this. All I did was copy and paste a Facebook posting. So I wanted to bring up the issue of social media. Anybody aware of the fact that social media has even changed how government works to some degree, right? Absolutely, no question about it. So this past year, I was helping my niece plan her wedding, and I stumbled across this post. If you don't want to read it, you don't have to. I will summarize it for you. In essence, This is someone who clearly identifies herself as, she says town clerk. We don't use the word town in the statute, so I'm thinking maybe like a village, fiscal court, something like that, right? So she clearly identifies herself as a public employee, and then I edited out her name and where she's from, by the way. She is bartering free DJ services at her wedding in exchange for advertising them, for giving them public gigs, clearly saying she'll use her public time and position to get this contractor extra gigs. Okay, two things here. Number one, can we all unanimously agree this is a very bad idea when people invoke social media? Number two, I would just say this: if any of you ever do decide to violate the Ohio ethics law with your public position, if you could go ahead and post that in writing for us on the internet for us to find, we'd be very grateful. It makes our investigations go a lot more quickly. People just put out the evidence right there for us to find. All right, you guys doing okay so far in conflicts? We okay? Concerns? Everybody all right? Rock on. All right, I'm gonna skip that ahead. I'm gonna skip these and go to our gift part of the Ohio ethics law. This is a part of the law that very often when I start this part, people kind of go to me, you know, Susan, you probably don't need to spend a ton of time on this for us. We're not exactly in the wine and dine category of people in the workforce in America today. Believe me, if that's where you all are in your career, know that I'm right there with you. In fact, I'll bet I'm even a couple steps behind you in this arena. I work for the Ohio Ethics Commission. People send remarkably few presents to the Ohio Ethics Commission. So, like at the holiday season, I kid you not, no vendor sends us cookies. We were bringing in our own baked cookies. Good year, everybody. Good job, everybody at the Ethics Commission. Right? Nobody acknowledged. I totally get it. But nonetheless, it is true that gifts do come up. These are issues that arise. And let's be honest, we're working in the work environment. Gifts can just be an issue section, just to be clear, for our workers' comp, right? So here's the thing about gifts. The number one question I probably get about this part of the ethics law is this: hey Susan, what's the dollar amount? Just tell me, what is it? Is it 10? Is it 20? 50? 100? A million? Just tell us already, and we will obey it. We promise. Here's the truth: in the statute itself, 10203 E and F actually do not identify a specific dollar. You will not find it. Hey, as long as the gift is less than this, you're okay, but it's over. You won't find that in the statute. The statute itself actually says to us these two words. You and I, people in public service, we're not allowed to solicit or even to just merely accept gifts that are substantial and improper. And this is the part where you think, yes, because that's much simpler than giving us a dollar amount. Thank you for that, you pedantic, tedious ethics nerds, right? The truth is, there are some states that tried the dollar amount and they reversed course. One was our neighbor, Pennsylvania, once had a $25 limit right in their statute. They were trying to be helpful. In fairness, they wanted to give a clear line for people. Here was the problem: that first year they amended the statute, they received an allegation that a state employee had accepted a $30 gift bag from a vendor. And so they're in this scenario of, how many thousands of dollars are we going to spend on an investigation for a $5 crime? So we have not gone that route in Ohio. So all I like to do is break down these words. What the statute says: you and I are not allowed to accept substantial gifts from improper sources. So let's start here, right? The improper source, all that word means improper. Who's the gift from? Who's the source? Who is it that wants to pick up my tab? Who sent the tin of cookies? Who's saying I got an extra ticket to this game or that show or golf outing or whatever, right? There's only a few categories that make someone an improper source to all of us in public service, right? Those first two bullet points: vendors and potential vendors, right? All those companies that are either already selling goods and services, doing consulting, they're doing business with the city of Oregon, or they're really trying to, right? That they're putting in bids and they're advertising and they want to meet with you guys when we talk about our widgets and our products. So current or wannabe vendors. If there is, in fact, anybody in this room that does have regulatory authority, right? Yes, we inspect these folks, that we review their permits, we can issue or deny things. Anybody in that regulated community is an improper source to us. Or those with a vested specific interest in matters before some public office. Like, let's say, for example, I really, really want to build my underwater basket weaving business here in Oregon, but I can't until the zoning board approves my rezoning request. festival. I'm not regulated by them, I'm not doing business, my company doesn't exist yet, but I clearly have a vested interest in the outcome of their decision. Please understand, nobody here is saying your citizenry or your vendors, these company reps that you work with, we're not saying they're all improper people or that they all have improper motives. That's not what we're saying. But what the statute is saying is that these folks are in fact improper sources of gifts that we will call substantial. Now, lacking a dollar amount, I grant you some of this will be from our advisory committee, even somewhat anecdotal. But can we all agree right off the bat that there are plenty of gifts out there on planet Earth that are not substantial? In your line of work, have you guys ever received or given out kind of the trinkety little promotional, you know, if you go to a conference and they're handing out all the tchotchkes of nominal, de minimis, frankly, we couldn't care less. I just spoke yesterday at a big conference, and it was sort of interesting. And they always have a little, you ever notice the only time you see Mr. Goodbars are at conferences and trick or treat? What? They disappear anywhere else on planet Earth, right? So, and you see, I saw gardening gloves, and that was interesting during the middle of a polar vortex. I'm like, oh yeah, because we're all working on our gardens right now, right? And all that kind of stuff, the pens and the pencils, the coffee cups. These are not things. If someone sent a little tin of cookies to your office about holidays, I will say this, if your city has any gift policies internally that are very strict, if your office, your boss says, hey guys, we're gonna take a cup of coffee, that's fine if that's an internal practice or policy. But in the eyes of the criminal statute, I just want to let you know as a taxpayer, we are not wasting your tax dollars opening a full-blown criminal investigation because someone sent a little tin of popcorn to the police department last Christmas. That's just not what we're about. These aren't the kind of gifts that get people into trouble. Although, I will confess something to you. Last year, I was doing a webinar from home that day. I got my little, coffee and everything. And after I was all done with the webinar, I was looking through the comments. I always look to see, was there a question? Do I need to follow up, send some advice? And this lady had written, oh, Susan, great webinar. Really enjoyed that. She wrote, please don't ever lose that wicked sense of humor. Your coffee cup cracked me up. And I was like, and I'm looking around my home desk. Do you know what mug I had randomly grabbed out of my own kitchen cabinet 2 minutes before going live on a webinar? It's a big white mug. I like big white mug. I don't like little dainty things like this. I want something, I can be a little clumsy, so I want something with some heft there. Hold up this. Big white mug with bright purple letters on the front that read, this might be wine. So the ethics lady was drinking out of at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday morning on a live webcam. So not every gift that you accept from the Ohio Grape Growers Association is illegal to accept. But maybe don't use it on live webcam on public outrage. You're not worried. Again, this is what we're talking about. When we talk about things that are substantial, the things that really have triggered criminal investigation, honestly, that we really have investigated, that we've worked with local prosecutors, people have, some have pled guilty, some have gone to trial, gone to settlement. My guess is your brain goes a little more to some of these kinds of categories of types of things. I will say, do I have any Ann Arbor folks here? So go blue, that's not a thing to say here.
Blue.
Okay, no problem. I live in Columbus, Ohio, right? I'm married to a Wolverine. And it's okay, I still like him a lot. We all have our things, right? The only thing, our basement is a shrine to the Mason. It looks like Michigan threw up in our basement, right? The only thing I've ever vetoed in 27 years of marriage was anything outdoors. I live in Columbus. I may as well paint a bullseye on our garage. So I didn't, it could be a game like that. Maybe I don't know about it right now, but these are the kinds of things you've heard. We've heard everything from jewelry to expensive meals, construction, leftover lumber. We've heard of, appliances, all construction on my own home. We've heard stories like this, right? These are the things that I believe, as a citizen, as a taxpayer, you have the right to know. That's not how government work goes, right? That you should never have to think about, so wait a minute, this person, that person's taking it. How do I know that they're not being influenced? Now, let me say this quickly about this part of the ethics law. This is not the bribery statute. Be really clear on that. You cannot say, well, yeah, I did take the ticket to the Lions game, but it didn't influence how I did my work, so I can still pay. This is the bribery statute. We don't have to prove that someone's behavior was altered as a result of that gift. All we have to show is, did that public employer official, did they accept that substantial gift from that vendor, from that regulated party? That's all we have to show. Here's what I will tell you. I've been doing this a long time. I continue to believe this is one of the sadder parts of the ethics law that people get into trouble for. Because you know why? I think it's one of the easiest parts of the ethics law to obey. I have two simple phrases. Number one would be a no thank you. That's cool. And number two is, I'll take my own check. I'll pay my own way. I couldn't care less who you golf with this spring. If you become good friends with the owner of some company that does business with the city, and you want to go golf and you don't go on vacation, well, I don't care. Just pay your own way. It's completely not my business if that's the way it goes down, right? This is one of those parts of the ethics law that I think, at the end of the day, is just so not worth it. No matter what it is for you, maybe if it were a game, if it were some really cool, theater show is gonna come through Toledo and you wanna get tickets at the, whatever it is, I still have to argue that 4 hours of entertainment, right? Even the national championship game, that sounds really fun to me, get to go to a game like that. Not at the risk of being charged with a crime, and being a convicted criminal, it's just not worth it to me at the end of the day. We doing okay so far, I guess everybody with me so far, have I lost anybody? Rock on. This is not to say if someone sends a little tin of cookies to your office later that we're freaking out. We are not. It's those figures, it's just no thank you. It's not worth it at the end of the day. Right here, I do want to quickly mention supplemental compensation. This again often is confused with the bribery part of the statute, right? When you think of bribes, you often think of things like let me back up. You often think of things like, hey, if I pass this inspection, there's 10,000 involved. This is more along the lines of, let's not accept tips, things like that, gift cards. No one's allowed to pay us to do our job, except our job. Okay, people sometimes call it the anti-gratuity statute. Okay, here's a few examples that we have seen in the past couple of years in the gift part of the ethics law. Okay, how about this one? So let's say there's a traveling Broadway show coming through Toledo, and I work for the city of Oregon, and my husband works for a construction company that has a contract with the city. And he says, hey, I got 2 tickets to see the show, Les Mis or whatever. Would I be allowed to go, knowing that the company he works for doesn't own it, but he works there? Am I allowed to go to the show that his company sent him tickets? Yes or no? What do you guys think? Okay, the truth is, there is an old joke among attorneys that they always say the answer to every question is it depends. Because in all fairness, in most cases, we have never said that's completely illegal, as long as that's been a normal part of his life. I will tell you, in my world, that's a normal part of my husband's life. He's always been in the finance industry. He works only with private clients. He's never worked with government at all. For him, bringing home tickets to shows and blue jackets and things like this, and memorial tickets and Central Lab, totally normal part of his life. In fact, he's so jaded by it. One time he left me a voicemail. I keep, this is how it goes, right? I keep it because it entertains me this day. The message started with this big sigh. Honey, I won't be home for dinner tonight after all. I have to take a client golfing this afternoon. Your heart bleeds for him a little bit. Does it really, babe? Are you going to get paid to golf again? You poor dear, right? In his world, that's totally normal. But for us, yeah, not so much. In that case, in this situation, if my husband came home with a ticket like that and said, hey, the client didn't show up, you want to go to the blue jacket with me, that would be okay even if they had a contract. What we do ask people to look for, right, is there's a bit of an honor system here, because this has happened, right? I'm all of a sudden elected, or I get appointed to the public library board. And for the first time in his whole life, my husband comes home with 2 tickets to, front row to see a show in downtown. And I go, isn't the company you work for trying to get a construction contract for the library? This isn't true. See what I mean? There's a bit of an honor system. That's what we're asking people in public service to be on the lookout for. So this is one that has to do with the supplemental compensation. We're not in the school district, so I'll just get that one. Okay. Now I know this is Oregon. We're not in the Toledo limits right now, but let's just use this as an example. So let's say that I serve on Toledo City Council, and the Mud Hens reach out and say, we want to give all city council members tickets for the season. What do you think the ethics commission said? This actually did happen. It was actually the dragons though. What do you guys think we said? Yes or no? What do you think the answer was? No. Well, here's what they did. The reason I put Dayton, here's why I said that. You know what Dayton did? I think this was kind of cool. The answer is no. City council members cannot accept from someone who has that many vested interests and matters in their city limits. They cannot accept season tickets and take for their family. But what they ended up doing that I thought was kind of cool, in the city of Dayton, they accepted some season tickets to the Dragons, and they looked for citizens caught in the act of being good. Like when they would see an article, this person helped with their relative or their neighbor with a fire, or this child's fighting cancer in the neighborhood, or the school district had this cool fundraiser, that they would give out these tickets and say, thank you for being a good resident. So I would, again, remind people, if you're ever in a scenario you're honestly like, I'm on this, don't know, is this okay? Come to us. We would be so happy to help people with questions and concerns about this part of the ethics law. Concerns on gifts before we move on, you guys okay? Everybody still awake? For those of you at this end of your day, you're rocking it. I'm really proud of you. I know this is hard. Well, hang with me just 20 more minutes and we got this. Okay. All right. Next part of the ethics law, public contracts. There is in the administrative code a way more fancy, erudite sounding definition of the phrase public contract. I don't do scholarly that well. So here's my very simple layperson definition of public contracts. A public contract is any time this city spends money. That's really all, it's totally normal, happens every day, totally normal. But because it's public money being spent, you kind of have to figure there will be some restrictions. That sort of makes sense. So I will tell you, here is the first felony provision that we're stumbling across today. And here's how this one would go down. Let's pretend that the city of Oregon says we need to have some roof repair done. I'm sure the roof is fine. I'm not trying to freak it. I'm just picking that as an example. We need to have some roof repair done. And I think I'm a city employee, and I think, oh, that's kind of cool, because you know why? First off, I always have to put a bucket in my office. That's good. But secondly, I'm excited because my brother happens to own a roofing company here in Lucas County, and I think my brother should go after that contract. Here's my first question to the ethics law. Knowing that I work for the city, would my brother my brother who's not a city employee, would he even be allowed to go after that bid, that contract? Can he even go after it? Yes or no? Absolutely. There's absolutely no restriction. He's a private sector person. He can go after any contract he wants. The issue isn't on him. The restriction's on me as the person in public service. I'm gonna go, hey bro, good luck. Deep down in my heart, I hope you get it because I think you're awesome, but you're on your own. I'm not putting in a good word for you. I'm not handling your big spec response. I'm not recommending, advocating, lobbying behind the scenes. I'm certainly not gonna vote on it, sign off it, so on and so forth. That restriction is in place. If it were certainly a member of my family, let's say it's someone in my private business life. In addition to me working for the city, I also work part-time for a roofing company. Same thing, if my boss at that job goes after that contract, dandy, but I'm staying together. I'm not the conduit for information, I'm not addressing questions or concerns they have, I'm not acting on it in any way, completely hands off. Now, the South, okay, I hope this one is pretty self-apparent. Can we all unanimously agree? If I'm a city employee or public official, but in my private life, I own a roofing company, can we all unanimously agree it'd be a very bad idea for me to use my public job to get the roofing contract for my own company, for my own city? Are we all good? That's a bad idea. Like 4th degree felony, bad idea for me to use my public position to get public funds for myself. Okay, this is though one of the parts of the Ohio ethics law, that word self, where recusal doesn't solve the entire problem. So we already said if it were my brother that owns the roofing company, as long as I stay out of it, we can get the contract. That's standard. Not so with ourselves. People often mistakenly say, hey, ethics lady, you just said my brother could get the contract if I recuse myself, so shouldn't I also be able to get that contract as long as I submit it on my own time using my own equipment, and then I recuse myself from the discussion and decision making? Shouldn't I be able to sell those roofing services to the city that I serve as long as I do it on the weekend off the clock? And the answer is a resounding no. There is a very specific prohibition. Let me think you just here for a minute. There's a very specific prohibition under this part of the ethics law that, in a nutshell, prohibits people in public service from being a vendor to the very public entity they serve. In a nutshell, any of you out there, if you own or co-own a business in your private life, if you do consulting, if you sell widgets, if you do landscaping on the side, whatever side gig you have, I wish you joy and success in those endeavors. Watch out for some of those conflicts like we talked about, but here's the other thing I need you to know. You just need to conclude right here, right now, that you will never have the city of Oregon as a client in your private business. I don't care if it's a written contract, if it's once in a while. I don't care if it's casual, as needed, there was nothing in writing, no. And that can be anything from usually like construction, but also, you know, really common one that we hear all the time. Like, I don't see a ton of them here, but like, when someone has like an Oregon, you know, logo or a shirt or a sweatshirt. If you work here or you serve as an elected official and you have a T-shirt printing this in your private life, you're not the one selling T-shirts right back to the city that say Oregon, like we're casting up. No, this is one of our two most commonly violated parts of the Ohio ethics law. So if you, again, owner calling a business, great, you should just don't even ponder that you should be one of the people potentially in the running to be able to sell those goods and services to your city. If you know the ethics law well, you may be aware there is an exception. Frankly, I'm not going to waste a lot of your time with the exceptions. I just don't think it's going to apply here. And if we were talking about a place like, you know, Hardin County, Ohio, it may be that I could prove, hey, any other vendor within a 50-mile range is going to charge you 3 times as much. That's possible. I won't lie to you. If somebody from the city of Oregon emailed us and said, hey, Ethics Commission, the only roofing company we can find is one that I own. We're going to be like, really? You can't find them? You see what I mean? So just conclude these two, these never the twain shall meet. Make sense? Okay, so I mentioned that people selling stuff to their own public entity is one of our two most commonly violated parts of the Ohio ethics law. The other most commonly violated part of the Ohio ethics law is also a public contract violation. Anybody know what the other most common, we didn't talk about it yet. Anybody know what the other most common violation is? Every darn year, it's one of our top 2. Anybody know what it is? Okay, good. When I put it up, you're all going like this. Right? Every darn year. I'm going to let you appreciate my stupid joke. Did you get it relatively from? Right? Yeah. In all fairness, nepotism is not the crime of 2 people who happen to be related to one another by blood or by marriage, both working for the city. Has that ever happened? Sure. My golly. I mean, go to a great, I mean, even this public entity isn't that huge, and it happens here, right? Go to the city of Toledo or Lucas County or University of Toledo. You don't think there's husbands and wives and brothers and sisters. It happens all the time. That's not what's illegal. If somebody, you know, just the other day, I have a relative who applied for a state job. It's cool. It's no big deal. The issue isn't whether or not those folks will work for that public entity. It's the issue, the crime of nepotism is when one person who was already in public service, in this case was the city of Oregon, right? And they do not recuse themselves when their relatives are going after that job. That's the crime, right? When someone gets involved, when they advocate. So if a member of your family, and I will define family, I don't want you to think we're talking about your 4th cousin twice removed kind of thing, right? We're talking about a little more detail, put that definition up. When someone in your family is looking for a job with the city of Oregon, there's a couple of things you can do that's perfectly legal. You can show them, like, are the jobs posted on a website somewhere? Like, yeah. So if you want to show them where they're posted, that's on the internet. If someone is not familiar with the World Wide Web, my guess is they're probably not real eligible for a job anyway anymore, but if you can show them where they're posted, that's on the internet, they'll look see. You can wish them well, and that's about it, right? You do not deliver their resume. You do not serve as their character. You don't write a letter in their behalf. You don't advocate for them. You don't stop by the HR's office or sit in on the interviews. You don't review the other resumes. You don't weigh in, vote, just consider it. Even like this whole, like, I had a situation once in a big entity in Cuyahoga County, and I was in the middle of a speech talking about this, and they said, well, what about the referral bonus? I said, what referral bonus? they were getting paid to commit the crime of nepotism, right? So the HR director, I've never had this happen all these years. The HR director, was kind of freaking out, and he came and he didn't mean it, but he kind of, you know how they stood, he stayed in front of you, and then he kind of waved his hand like as if to dismiss you. No, but you guys, wait, that's because that's our policy internally. So I actually, literally, I took a step forward and kind of like, wait a minute, your policy is, it can't supersede a criminal statute, right? So if a member of your family, right, these folks, it doesn't matter where they live, by the way, if your child is adult, grown, lives somewhere else, doesn't matter, they're still your family under our definition. All these folks, if they are looking for a public job that's perfectly fine, but you don't mention it, you don't talk about it, you don't answer questions, you don't stop by HR. Another big board I was speaking at, their HR person said to me, Susan, I've made progress with our board. I have finally convinced them that their adult children need to apply for jobs through the online portal like everybody else, if they can't hand deliver their resumes. So that's great, good for you. And then she said, now I just need to convince my board members that once their kids do apply, the board members can't stop by my office every couple of days to ask how the process is going, right? So truly hands off, not one action, not one word, verbal, nonverbal, writing, oral, casual, form, nothing, no involvement at all. Now, here's what I will tell you, that I think nepotism is not only one of our most common violations. Keep in mind, this also is a 4th-degree felony in Ohio. Do you know that? You have the right as a citizen, as a taxpayer, to know not just where you work, but the governments that serve you where you live, the county, whether you live in this county or adjacent county, whether you live in this city or Couchsburg Village, your state government, you absolutely have the right to know that person got that job because they were the most qualified and not just the best connected, right? So, like, take these next two guys, for example. I don't care how well connected they were. Would you want them to get the jobs they're going after for here in the city? Yeah, you don't want these people to get that job just because they had a bunch of relatives on city council or whatever, right? Okay, so those are the two most common, self-instruction agency and nepotism. Steer clear of those. If you need backup, check out our website. I have all kinds of fact sheets. I even have a fact sheet of nepotism about hiring minor children. And you might think, do people really do that? It happens all the time, like lifeguards at the city pool, like custodial help at the local college or public school. It happens all the time. I have all kinds of on our website. Check it out to see what we can help you with in the future. And then the very last area of the ethics law. If there is anyone in this room that you're thinking about your exit, I don't just mean from this class in a few minutes. I mean from public service. You're thinking about retirement. You're thinking about, hey, I'm going to leave the city of Oregon. There's a really high-paying job with City Napoleon or something. Or I'm going to go work in the private sector. I always wanted to own my own business, etc. Right? If you are thinking about your departure from the city of Oregon, right? There's just this one last restriction I want you to be aware of. For the vast majority of us, it's only a 1-year restriction. I don't think is there anybody in this city that works in the solid and hazardous waste fields? That's not the case here, right? Okay, cool. They have 2 years. Okay, then your restriction is 1 year, where this law essentially says, in that first year, after you go to work somewhere else. So I was working for the city of Oregon, and I go to work for Lucas County, let's say, or I go to work for a private, employer or whatever. And my new boss says to me, hey, could you reach out to so-and-so about thus and such? That's the blanks I can fill in. If I go, yes, if I say it's been more than a year since I left the city of Oregon, this is expired, don't worry about it, all done. But if I go, yeah, it's been less than a year, then I go, okay, and they need me to call so-and-so. This law says in that first year, I can't represent, communicate on behalf of my new job to anybody in government for that first year about projects I have been part of. So when they say, can you call so-and-so about such and such? I'm gonna go, so-and-so, wait, oh, I'm calling a private law firm? Okay, that doesn't count, that's not representation. Representation is when I'm communicating on their behalf to someone in government. It could be the government that I left, but it could be any other government as well, right? If they say, yeah, could you reach out to the city of Oregon or the city of Toledo or whatever, okay, I'm like, yeah, that's representation, because I'm communicating on their behalf to someone in government, and then can you reach out to so-and-so, we'll establish that about thus and such, that's this last one. Is it a made matter, case, proceeding, issue, project, something that I have been part of? It is fair to say that if I go to work at this, I leave the ethics commission, I go to work for this consulting firm. And if they say, could you reach out to so-and-so at thus and such? If I say, yeah, that would be a government, they want me to talk to you, but what they want me to discuss, I never had any involvement in. It was a different department, I never had one conversation, one email, then I could. But if I go, yeah, you know what, I was sort of involved in that. There was a project that I helped oversee, I supervised that staff. In that first year, it doesn't mean at my new job, I must feign ignorance of everything I'm smart about. What it means is in that first year, I'm gonna say, hey boss, I can't be the one to make that phone call, write that letter, go to that meeting, et cetera. But what I can do is I can counsel whoever you're sending that meeting, help them know what are the questions to ask, parts of the law to be aware of. The whole point of this law, if you're wondering, okay, I kind of get what it is, I don't understand why. Well, we don't want to have city happen, because I leave the ethics commission on Friday, and on Monday, I'm on my new job, and I'm right away on the horn with all my old pals going, you know that project we had, could we switch directions? That would really help you. Even that influence on behalf, right? That's why it's only if you're communicating with government, because it's about representing the people well, okay? For those of you that may have this, for those of you that may have this issue arising in the back of it, I don't know how many of you do in fact interact with confidential information statutory. If you're in the police world, maybe some investigations, if you deal with any of the things. I don't know if there's anybody here that you may have access to company trade secret information. This is just a reminder that there is no time limit. For example, I am familiar with investigation by the Ethics Commission a long, long time. I know about all of our investigations, even those that will never be public knowledge. You know, we closed a case and didn't try them and they didn't go to court. People don't even know that we investigated that person. I don't mean to sound maudlin, but the truth is that information goes with me to my grave. There is nothing in the law that says, hey, now that I've retired, I can always tell my husband over cocktail. Nope, that if it's truly statutory confidential, there's no time limit. So again, what the point of these parts of law is, number one, that protect the public, but also I want your last day here at the city of Oregon to go better than this guy's last day at his job. Yeah, that's a crime too, just FYI, right? You guys okay? Everybody doing okay? All right, if you have questions that do arise in the coming weeks, months, years, feel free to reach out to us. There's all kinds of stuff on my phone number. There's our website, etc. So on behalf of the Ethics Commission, all of us who have people that we love in Northwest Ohio, thank you so much for all you do to make this community a great place to live, work, to call home. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Stay warm and reach out to us anytime we need any assistance, okay? Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Before you leave, if you haven't done so, where is the sign-in sheet? Here.
Let's get it back.